Hey guys, it may not be perfect, but I am determined that there was more than one way to skin a tomato. This is John Michael, and we are a couple hours late getting out today's Year of Thinking the Year of Thinking Magically Masterclass. But I really appreciate you guys' patience and understanding, and I promise to make this worth the while for you. So we are in my living room now. I discovered or figured out that being surrounded by the capital region here, that there are lots of folks in the area who may or may not have guest Wi-Fi. Excuse me. And we happen to be just a couple blocks away from the Capitol Rotunda itself, where we were married. So there are a lot of government offices that have guest Wi-Fi as well. And while it's not the strongest, unlike that coffee, while it's not the strongest signal, I'm hoping that I'm getting enough of a signal for this to come through clearly for you guys. So I'm going to go ahead and turn the comments on. I am also not obviously not on my computer, and so we'll see if I can continue to get a decent signal here on the laptop in the living room. But this just gives you guys a little chance to see my living room too, and see where so much of our time and relaxation is spent. Actually, I don't know if I can turn that around. It's really quite a lovely space. Love the built-ins. They're just really awesome. And so today, there's a couple things I wanted to share with you guys, a couple ideas in keeping with this theme. The first one is just a matter of kind of housekeeping. And so what I'm going to do based on some of your requests, some of you feel that the materials that we're sharing could be beneficial to folks that you know, and you wish that you had more time to get those folks on board. And normally when this class begins, we have a cutoff. And that's because we normally keep these classes a little more intimate and people get to know one another. But I'm going to go ahead and take a chance on all of you. If you have folks who would really be serious about working the program, folks who would be really serious about participating. Now, remember, they don't have to watch this broadcast live. They can watch this broadcast. I mean, we've got friends that are watching this on the other side of the pond, and it's 1:30 in the morning when we do the 11 o'clock broadcasts. So you don't have to watch live. You can watch that. We've designed this, and we're using Facebook for the sole purpose of making it easy for people to check in when they can. Work this around your life. Don't work your life around a master class. That would be crazy. So we're going to open the doors. If you want to, now anybody who referred folks who may have come to try to join the class up until this moment have been turned away because the class had already begun. We already had it set so that it automatically rejected any new requests. But you can send those folks an invitation. You can do it right from here in the group. Just send those folks an invitation to join. Tell them that they just have to answer the questions that appear on the registration, and we will be happy to add them. Now, when we add them, make sure you tell them yourselves, because we have no mechanism in place to be able to do that, that they're going to need to catch up. They're going to need to go back and catch the previous sections, which leads me to the next thing that I want to talk about. Yesterday, we had to let a couple people go from the group. And we had to do that because one in particular decided that she wasn't going to answer any of the questions as we asked them. She was going to reframe them so that it didn't make her have to stretch or think or appear anything other than better than all of us. So we asked her to leave. Another person just felt like they didn't need to do the series in order, and that they would just participate when they found something that they like. And that's not going to work either. And there's a really important reason for that. And the reason brings me to one of the situations that came up today. And I'm, this is a group that has to be intimate and it has to be compassionate or it won't work. And so in intimacy, when we have a family that we're establishing here, a tribe that we're establishing here, it means we have to be willing to talk about things openly that might make some of us or all of us uncomfortable from time to time, particularly me. And so today's curriculum just happened to fall at a point when we were at a tipping point. And that tipping point came when, when a number of people started to express frustration over folks in the group who are a little more exuberant, a little more, who I really believe from a place of genuine compassion, a desire to be affirming of everybody. These folks seem like chatterboxes who never shut up and who constantly have to comment on everything, which comes across as needing to be on center stage, under the spotlight at all times. And it's exhausting. It's exhausting. It's exhausting with some of these folks do that in their daily lives. And it's less noticeable when you're a busy person yourself and you happen to glance over and see, oh yeah, there they are blowing their horn again. But when it happens in an intimate group like this, it becomes disruptive. So I'm going to ask right up front before we dive into today's material that when we're doing these videos that we say good morning, once. You don't have to say good morning to every person who comes in. If you said good morning once, you say good morning to the group. That we not have side conversations with everybody else in the group while the group is going on. If I need feedback from you, I'm going to ask for feedback. When you're nonstop chattering or have to say good morning to every person who comes in or start giving your brand of pop culture encouragement to everyone that comes in, you're distracting everyone who's trying to watch this video, including me. And you're going to make it so it's difficult for me to catch real questions from people who are here because they really want to create a better life. They really want to begin living magically. So that out of the way, let's just all be a little bit more mature and a little bit more mindful and a little more respectful of the fact that we're all coming here for one purpose. And if you're not here because you want to begin to live a more magical life, then please take yourself out of the group because then you don't belong here. And there's nothing wrong with that. If you feel that you're better than this group and you feel that you're more advanced as one of these people did yesterday and that this is all just a waste of your time, go away. Nobody's gonna mind. And we're not gonna think poorly of you because you decided that you're better than that. And for all we know, maybe you are. Maybe you should be teaching a class somewhere, but you're not gonna do it here. So all of that aside, today's topic is about learning to shut up. The original curriculum said, shut the fuck up. And it's about focusing on the document that I shared with you guys yesterday. It was a short ebook written by someone who asked to remain anonymous, somebody that I know very well. And the idea is that we're talking about an ego. When we say ego, it's not in the Buddhist or Hindu type of connotation. When we're saying ego, we mean your self-esteem, your self-worth, your ability to be able to function in relationship to other people in a healthy manner. And quite often what happens, and I want everyone who express their frustration and their concern over what was going on in the group to understand this. When people seem to be, look at me, look at me, look at me, look at me, and they have to interrupt every 5 minutes or they have to give their 2 cents and they always have to seem like they're so much more advanced than everybody else, quite often that's a person who's hurting and hurting deeply. Maybe that person doesn't get the attention they need at home. Maybe that person has been, seriously, psychologically and spiritually wounded by the things that happened in their childhood. And they're just looking for validation. Now, I'm not saying that there's justification for it, because there's not. This is a grown-up group. And in this grown-up group, we have to conduct ourselves according to the standards of our society. And that means being more respectful. But I want you guys, as your homework today, to do two things. Originally, I was just going to say, start to look at when you're opening your mouth, whether that's in written form or in verbal form. Are you adding something? Are you contributing something of value? But also try and be more mindful of when other people do the same thing. Is that their brokenness that's speaking? Today we had an opportunity to see someone else whose expression of themselves, of their concerns, really touched my heart, because there was this long paragraph with very little punctuation in it, no spacing, and zero additional paragraphs. It was just one whole thing. And that's what our ego does. And I thought it was a beautiful illustration. It touched my heart and saddened me that somebody was hurting that badly. And I know that that isn't the only person in this group who's hurting that badly. So in my mind, that person who is willing to be courageous enough to speak their truth is a hero, because there are people that are in this group who aren't willing to speak their truth in that way, who aren't willing to express their pain. And so it also gave us an illustration of what happens, what a damaged ego or a broken ego does, and why it's so important to, as you read that booklet, to begin to consider some of those things, because the ego never shuts up. The ego is at us 24/7 when it's damaged. It's needling us with all of the lies. And so it's important that we begin to understand those lies. And it's also important that we understand the difference. A lot of Westerners look at Buddhist material or Hindu material, and they see words that say things like killing the ego, slaying the ego. So they think they have to get rid of their ego. But in our Western mind, the ego means something completely different, and the ego is healthy, and the ego is an important part of who we are. And so this disconnect happens, and they become frustrated and think that they're failing because they're not able to destroy what we in the West understand as the ego. So there's a big difference, and I want you to understand, you're not going to get rid of the ego that we talk about in the West. A lot of Western Buddhists have contributed a great deal of damage to people's psychology by not understanding that simple truth. So when we're talking about a damaged ego and bringing it back to a place of healthiness, that's important. Just as important as yesterday when we said, are you speaking to make an impression, or are you speaking to make a difference? Now, most people just took that at the superficial level. But some folks really needed to look a little bit more deeply. And today, the sort of the result of that seed that was planted yesterday boiled to the surface and bubbled over. Because this course, guys, is as much a course of magic as it is of personal development. Now, one of the people that we had to ask to leave said, I thought this was going to be more about magic and honing my magical skills. And I don't know quite what that person's delusional idea of magic is, but magic is operating from a place of your personal power. And if you don't work on personal development, you're not going to ever experience or unlock the magic within you. This is a course on practical magic at the end of the day. And practical magic begins with becoming a more healthy person, coming into your power. So I have a suggestion for everyone here. And this suggestion is going to take us into the weekend, even though today is Thursday. I want us to continue to talk tomorrow. And I may even jump on a Facebook Live tomorrow if these storms, now we're expecting 50 and 60 mile an hour winds here in Harrisburg. And unfortunately, being in a 120-year-old building, that sometimes causes problems with our cable. It pulls them off the wall is what the situation is today. And they're not allowed to get up there on their little ladder thingies with the truck if it's too windy or if it's lightning or storming. So we don't have very much rain right now. They are out there working right now. I'm expecting everything to be back in order. But here's a bit of a challenge for you. And it's not the kind of homework that if you don't do it, you fail. Nothing in this program is like that. So if you can, try and find somewhere on television, on Netflix, on Hulu, on YouTube, where you can watch either the entirety of or a few segments of the movie Practical Magic with the great Stockard Channing and Diane Wiest and I forget who else. I think Nicole Kidman's in it. I don't remember who all the cast was. It's one of my favorite movies. I'm just not wired to remember the actors' names. But watch that movie because there's a message in there, and it's an important message. And throughout this course, there's going to be times when I'm going to say, if you can go and find this movie, go ahead and check it out. Sandra Bullock, that's right, Jennifer. Thank you. Let me see. Jennifer's comment here says she's going to watch the replay. Okay, perfect. Sometimes those Facebook notifications seem not to work. I know. I apologize. I don't know what I can do to make that a little bit better, but hopefully those will work for you. And thank you for reminding me of Sandra Bullock. Yeah, it's a brilliant movie. It's really such a great story, and it's what we're doing here. So when somebody says to me, "Look, I'm leaving this group because I thought you're going to be teaching magic," I am. It's just not the magic that you see on Charmed. It's not the magic you see on Sabrina. It's not the magic you see on any of the shows on the CW, but it's the magic that comes from operating from your personal power. It's the magic that allows you to work with the energy around circumstances, situations, and people to shift that energy so that you're actually living a happier, fuller, more productive life, and a life that bends to your will. But in order to do that, we have to really build on a solid foundation. The ancient script tells us that the house built on sand isn't going to be around for very long. So we're going to build on a solid foundation. And if you look at what we've done over the past week, it's been about building that solid foundation, learning to listen better, learning to be more present. It's about bringing value to the moment. See, when we start to make those little mind shifts, and this is a daily program. So, if I were going to do a 4-hour-long segment, I might have to gloss over a lot of these little foundational points in order to get to the heart of the living magically. But we have an entire year. So if you're in a hurry, you're going to be disappointed. But I promise you, every single week, this is going to become more and more empowering. And we're on a learning curve. So some of these issues with people chatting while, over top of the presentation and people's egos getting in the way where they have to be the center of attention and all of that, those things will resolve themselves just like they do in any family. And so I ask you to be compassionate and patient with folks, but I also ask you to find your voice. And there was a situation where someone very kindly said at the end of yesterday's presentation or the day before's presentation, or one of those days, obviously because we're in the first week, and they said thank you at the end of the presentation, and someone else decided to say you're welcome. And that was very off-putting for the person who was trying to thank me for what I just did. And I didn't think anything of it, although I thought it was really odd that somebody who had absolutely nothing to do with what I just did was saying you're welcome. But okay, nice if they feel like they get to say you're welcome for and speak for me, but no one needs to speak for me. This is a class, in the simplest of terms, where folks are entrusting to me their personal development in partnership. And so I'm in partnership with each and every one of you. I'm working with each and every one of you on your journey, and no one else has the right, without being invited by you, to interfere. So this isn't a class that's being done by anyone else. Nobody else in this group, so that we're clear, because a few people have said, well, is there more than one teacher? No, there's not. This is my masterclass. If someone else has something to teach, and that's fantastic, and I encourage that, they need to set up their own masterclass. But they're not going to do it in this particular class. And so I apologize that those things happen, but we need to move on. We need to let those things go, and we need to begin to come from a place of forgiveness. That's going to be the big kickoff of next week. We need to begin to work on the healing process, because in order to live magically, we have to live unfettered. So tomorrow, if I have internet, I'm going to jump on, and the assignment, though, is to really kind of explore this idea of adding value and looking at some of our interactions on the rest of social media, not in this group, but are you the kind of person on social media who has to comment on every person's post because you need to be seen or heard? Now, if you have a business to run, that's different. Your commenting is putting your brand out there. But if you have to comment, and if they look at your comment at somebody else's thread and they see that you've commented 15 times in a single post, you have to comment on every single person's comment thereafter, you've got an issue, you've got a problem, and you need to work on that problem. So be mindful of that. And then if you have the opportunity, watch Practical Magic, because there's a message there that will wrap up this first week in beginning to live magically. Because even if this is the first time you've begun to explore that possibility, I promise you this, and I apologize that we've gone a little over today. I promise you this, you've already begun to live magically on the very first day that we started this class. Your decision to do so opens the door for that to happen. We frequently end our broadcast by saying, return to the moment. That's where the power is. You're going to hear me say that for 52 weeks, because that is where the power is. It's not anywhere else. I'm not going to give you power. You're not going to learn some magic words that create the power. The power always comes from within you. And for some folks, that power has a name. They give that the name of a god or a goddess. They give that the name of spirit or universal energy or creative intelligence. For others, it has no name because it's bigger than any name. But it's always indwelling. There is no power outside of you, period. The power that's inside of me is the power that's inside of you. So you're not taking away another's power, but it's one power. As the Rastafarians would say, one love. And for me, that's what it is. That power is love. That's why we can't move forward without addressing the issues, without addressing the damage, without addressing the brokenness, but addressing it from a place of real love. And so we return to that present moment. We fill that present moment with gratitude. We fill it with forgiveness. We fill it with an openness that tomorrow, as Scarlett would say, is another day. And we remember that the best is yet to come. I love and appreciate each and every one of you, and we'll talk to you soon.